Welcome to the PBI presentation of 2021 Earth semester. I am Pooja. Along with me, Yashwant Rawal and Dhananjay are working on a project called Quarantine Wristband, and we come under the guidance of Anupama ma'am. This is our circuit connection, and the components used are ESP32 module, MAX 30100 sensor, DHT22 sensor, and a 4.7 kilo resistor. We would be using an Arduino IDE, and this is our code. This is the required output.
Hello, I'm Mohammed Sinan from BMSIT AIML department, and my team members are Mohan Das and Mohammed Zaid. We have come together for a project in which we built an analytical tool which analyzes how different news websites have been reporting on the coronavirus issue. We have used a couple of libraries for the same, which I'm going to show you. Libraries which would help us in building an analytical tool. We use this library called Beautiful Soup, with which when we run this block of code, we get all things present in a given word. Like for example, in this ndtv.com, we have that put here. When we run this block of code, we get all the links present in ndtv.com. And we have another library called newspaper, in which when we give a URL of any particular article, we get all the text of the article. We also get the title of the article. We decided to both. We combined Beautiful Soup as well as newspaper, and we came up with this code. And we have also added a word search, which counts the number of articles in which COVID or coronavirus or COVID-19 is present. In the end, these are all, we get this as a result, in which we can see the number of all the titles of news articles. In the end, we also get the number of times the word COVID is used. Thank you.
Greetings to everyone watching. Today, I, Rohan Unikrishan, along with the rest of my group, which consists of Pratiksha Rao, Parag Deshpande, and Nikhil S., will be introducing a system that we've developed called the virtual queuing system. We've done this under the kind guidance of Dr. Bharati Malakreddy, so we'd like to thank her very much. Okay, so since the start of the pandemic, the importance of safety measures have actually skyrocketed, and with it, the need for alternative solutions posed by these problems. So we've observed that the restrictions imposed by the lockdown and by the government uh, have actually caused a lot of industries such as the airports or railway stations, retail stores, provision stores, etc., to actually take quite a massive hit in terms of the revenue they've generated. So the main issue to be tackled here is the conversion from the offline process to an online process. One of the main problems is waiting in queues, which actually is quite inconvenient during these times because it increases the risk in contamination. So as a solution, what we've developed is that we've developed a virtual queuing system, which basically it takes a customer and it puts him or her on a waiting list, and and just like a regular queue, he or she has to wait until his or her turn comes, and only then the ticket will be allotted. So this can be used in various areas such as retail stores or airports where they need tickets, metros, etc. So that's why we believe this is actually quite a good system. This achieves many things, such as it actually saves the time of the customers because they won't have to wait in lines. It decreases the risk in contamination, and it also provides a long-term solution to waiting in queues. So, to back up the claims that I've made in this introduction, and for the proposed methodology to conduct this system, we have Nikhil S., who will be presenting the literature survey.
Okay, thank you, Rohan. Myself, Nicholas. I will give a quick rundown on the surveys we used for the project. We have taken a virtual queuing solution to manage customer flow, and a QLS, a digital management system, and it is Disney's virtual queue management system. These are some of the virtual queuing systems we considered for the survey. While there have been many many people implemented this virtual queuing system for the customer satisfaction. But here we are going to give a customer satisfaction with a social distancing norms. And here is an overview how virtual queuing works based on our project. We decide a safe number based on the store area and employee count. Customers can log into our website and choose the store they want to enter based on the live count of the people who are present there. And customers can wait remotely while in the comfort zone of their parking lot or in their house, where if they are near, when it is their turn, the staff members will give a notification for them, and the customers can have a safe shopping experience while always maintaining the social distancing norms. And as per the how the website works, Pratiksha will continue.
Thank you, Nikhil. I'm Pratiksha, and I'll be taking you through the working of our website. The website is titled Q-Free, and what you can see here is the main page of our website. Our main page consists of our mission written down here, and also our cause, which is to reduce the rapid spread of coronavirus, and also the benefits of virtual queuing and Q-Free's contribution towards that goal. We have a follow button here. Clicking this will give you notifications about new posts and new store additions via email. Going to the second page of our website, it's a store page where you have a list of all stores which have virtual queuing enabled. We also have a search bar. So if I have to search for a store I wish to enter, I can just click search, and it will immediately take me to my search result. Here it is Rangnath Provision Store. Coming back to the store page, we have Rangnath's Provision Store here. This is a small grocery store near my home. I've talked to the owner of this place, and he has gladly agreed to collaborate with us for our project. And so below here, we have given the address, the description, and the store timings to the benefits of the customer. If the customer wants to go to the store and want to book a ticket for the store, he can click the link here. This will directly link you to the executable C file, which you have to download. Once it is downloaded, you can run the file. Once the file is running, you can see 4 options here. 1 for booking a ticket, 2 for cancel booking, 3 for display ticket details, and 4 to exit. So if I click 1, it will ask me my name. I type it out, and it will ask me for my mobile number. It will also ask for my age, and then it will say booking successful, and it will allot me a ticket number. So right now my ticket number is 1. In case I have to cancel my booking, then I just have to click 2. Then I just have to type in the allotted ticket number. In this case, my ticket number was 1. So I click in 1, and then the ticket gets cancelled automatically. So all this data is actually linked through a spreadsheet, and it is made available to the store owner. So the owner can view the spreadsheet anytime in his mobile or laptop or whatever platform, and he'll be able to, through the mobile number listed here, he'll be able to call the customer to enter the store. So this is how, through our website Q-Free, we are trying to implement virtual queuing. Hope you like this, and thank you for watching.
Hi, I'm Aditi, and I'm joined by my teammates Adarsh and Aditya. We are doing a project called Hotspot Detection Alarm System.
Our topic is Hotspot Detection Alarm System. As we are well aware of the present pandemic, social distancing has become inevitable. So we are going to use Hotspot Zone Detection System to make sure that everyone follows social distancing. Detection system uses existing CCTV or IP cameras combined with AI to identify that people gathered at a specific area where the camera is installed and maintaining social distance or not. Motivation: according to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), social distancing is very important with coronavirus as it spreads from person to person through cough or sneeze, spreading of droplets through air in a close distance through social distancing and wearing masks. The risk of spreading can be reduced drastically. Often people tend to forget to maintain a 6 feet distance when in public. Hence, a detection system like ours with a warning alarm will be helpful in situation like this. Proposed methodology. We plan on running the YOLO weekly model on the Raspberry Pi 4 with OpenCV installed on it. Then we will use it to Raspberry Pi camera, which is in turn connected to the CCTV camera. Then an audio, then an Arduino alarm system is connected, which will be responsible for the schedule system.
So in the hardware components, we are using Arduino Uno and buzzer. For Arduino Uno, we are connecting through USB cable, which has a 5-volt input, and buzzer we can supply voltage either 3.3 or 5 volt in the range of 3.05 volt. We are supplying here at 3.3 volt because if you use 5 volt, it does vibrate more. So we are using 3.3 volt. So in the preference from Python code to Arduino, we are using a library called PyFormata and time delay called library called time. So what does this PyFormata do? Is it actually connects the interface between Arduino Uno and the Python code of social distancing. So yeah, when we run social distancing this with Python code, it will automatically send signals to the Arduino, and hence if violations are increased by 5, then the buzzer will buzz.
This is the software part of our project. Our project is based on object detection, object tracking, and the distance measured between the detected objects. For all of these functions, we use the algorithm YOLO, which stands for You Only Look Once. It can detect up to 9,000 classes, but for this project, we'll be using only one class, which is the person class. For the distance measured between the detected objects, we'll be using the Euclidean distance, and that can be seen in right here, this part of the code. Here is where each person is given a bounding box around him. Each person is identified as a bounding box, and it's considered as a centroid, and the distance between two centroids is measured. We are going to show the demo of our project now. This is the Arduino Uno R3 connected to the buzzer with a series of jumper wires. Now, when I connect the buzzer Arduino to the laptop, this music indicates that the buzzer, the Arduino is loaded and is ready to be used. Now, as you can see in the code, when I run the code, you'll hear the music again, which indicates that the process is starting. As you can see, a window popped up in which the YOLO algorithm is running, and you can see the bounding boxes around people. Green indicates that they're in safe distance, and red indicates that they're not following social distancing. As the social distancing violations go above 5, the buzzer beeps. Now you can notice that the violation is above 9, 7, which is all above 5, and thus the buzzer beeps. The algorithm goes through each and every frame of the video, and thus the social distancing is detected and the algorithm works. This is our project, Hotspot Detection Alarm System.
Hello everyone, I am Sanjeevani Raghavendra. My teammates are Sai Deshik and Sai Deshit. We are the group 16, and we are under the guidance of Vishwakaran sir, the assistant professor of AI and ML branch, BMSIT. And we are working on the project Contactless Doorbell. We will see what our project is about, the existing system and their limitations, the system requirement specifications for this project, the proposed methodology, and finally the implementation. So our lifestyle has changed nowadays, and we have a adapted to many new and safer ways of livelihood, from social distancing to working from home. Our main aim is to stay safe and to avoid any unnecessary contact with objects. And nowadays, everything is either digital or contactless. Even a doorbell, which can be a surface for the spread of a virus, why can't that be contactless too? So here we are using an ultrasonic sensor instead of push button, so that there is no contact between the person and the doorbell. So we can also use an IR sensor, but if it's a hot or a sunny day, then we might get fake alarms because IR sensor detects the heat and motion of the object. And so that's why we are using an ultrasonic sensor. And even the range of ultrasonic sensor is high. So there are a variety of doorbells. There are doorbells with a security system installed in it. There are doorbells which are built using AI-based technology, and a person inside the house can talk and hear a person outside the house. But all of these have only one limitation, that is, it still uses push button. And there is a contact between the person and the doorbell. So let's look into the system requirement specification. As mentioned earlier, we will be using an ultrasonic sensor. And then we have the Arduino board, which is coded in C or C++ language to detect the distance. And finally, we'll have a buzzer. The non-functional requirements is that, first of all, it's cost efficient. And then the maintenance cost is also less. The performance is quite well. And then it is user friendly. That means a person has nothing to do other than placing his or her hand in front of the sensor. So the sensor gives out ultrasonic waves, and when an object is placed in its path, the waves get reflected back to the sensor. So that's how the sensor reads the object. And with this, we can calculate the distance. So there are two main points in our code, that is the distance and a conditional statement. So we all know that distance can be calculated by a simple formula, that is distance equals to speed into time. Here the speed is nothing but speed of sound, and time is the time taken by the sound wave to travel from the object to the sensor. And here we can see that the ultrasonic waves moves from sensor to the object and from object back to the sensor. So there it covers a round trip. And so the calculated distance should be divided by 2 to find the actual distance. Now the second point is that the conditional statement. So let's say the distance calculated is equal to another variable called a safer distance. So if that safer distance is equal to or less than 5 centimeters, then only we want the buzzer to ring. Because we don't want the buzzer to ring whenever a person just passes through the door, passes by in the corridor. So these are the two main conditions what we will be putting in our code. And without any further ado, let's look into the implementation.
Hi guys, my name is Sai Deshik. My teammate here is Sai Deshik. We are of batch 16. We are going to explain the hardware part under the guidance of Vishwakiran sir. See guys, this is our hardware part. This is the breadboard we are using. This is the Arduino board. This is the buzzer. This is the ultrasonic sensor. And rest of the part will be continued by my friend.
Hi guys, this is Sai Deshik. I am here to explain connections and working of the hardware. Let us see. As you can see, I use the jump wires to connect the sensor to the Arduino board and Arduino board to the buzzer. Let us see the connections clearly. As you can see guys, here VCC pin of the sensor is connected to the 5 volts of the Arduino board, and the trig pin is connected to the digital pin 7, and the echo pin is connected to the digital pin 6, and the ground is connected to the ground of the Arduino board. As you can see here, the positive of the buzzer is connected to digital pin 13 of the Arduino board, and the negative of the buzzer is connected to the ground of the Arduino board. As you can see, this is the distance sensor used to sense the object within the particular range. When the object comes within the range of the sensor, the buzzer rings. When it is out of the range, the buzzer doesn't ring. This is our project. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys. Thank you for your cooperation.
Welcome all. We are a group of three, myself Deepak along with Dia and Isha. We came up with an idea of smart attendance system using RFID reader, which would completely automate the whole system of student, employee or lecturers attendance and tracking using RFID technology, which is effortless, quicker and protected as compared to the conventional methods. Looking at the implementations, we need an Arduino Uno board, an Ethernet shield, an RFID RC522 module with tags, and jumper wires. Students or lecturers are given a kind of RFID cards as a recognizable proof. UNO board and RFID readers are connected using jumper wires accordingly to the circuit diagram as shown here, and an Ethernet connection for storing data in Google Sheets. We have used Arduino Environment IDE for software implementation. Let's get into the working. When a RFID tag is placed on the RFID reader, it reads and the data is recorded in the Google Sheets in real time. It also differentiates between valid and an invalid user. The data includes date, allowed members, and members ID being recorded accordingly. When a valid user places the tag against the reader, it is recorded as 1, which means he or she is a valid user. Similarly, when an invalid user ID tag or card is placed, it is recorded as 0, indicating he or she is an invalid user, also recording their IDs. Considering all these available features and advantages that we see, using RFID technology should be adapted to our current attendance system, hence gaining the maximum benefit out of it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, myself Vineet and these are my teammates Lakshmipriya and Darshan. We are studying third sem AML at BMS AT&M. Our project title is Travel Safe with Voice Assisting Alerts using face mask detection. And we are under the guidance of Dr. Bharti ma'am. And now Lakshmipriya will give a brief introduction of the project.
Okay, so the outbreak of the coronavirus has greatly impacted all our lives, and it is very important for all of us to abide by the safety norms like social distancing and wearing the mask in the public places. It's also required to frequently sanitize our hand to be safe. So, public transportation is one of the domains where we can expect a very rapid spread of the virus because it is a very busy, congested area. So we need a technology to avoid the spread of the virus in the transportation domain. Therefore, we have come up with an idea wherein we'll be using a camera, that is the Raspberry Pi camera module, along with the casing, which will be installed in the entrance of the public transportation vehicles. This camera checks for the people before entering into the vehicles if they're wearing the mask properly or not. In case they're wearing the mask properly, it will give them a green light indication telling them that they can enter the vehicle now. But if they're not wearing the mask properly or if they're not wearing the mask at all, it will indicate them with a red light signal along with a voice message telling them to wear the mask. So this is the basic idea, and now Darshan will be briefing you about the code and the outcome.
Yeah, this is the code which was written by us. Here we differentiate two parts of the code. One is model trainer code and another is recognition code. This is the recognition code and this is the model trainer code, and this is the output of model trainer code. As we increasing the number of times we train the code with data set, accuracy will increase us, but loss will decrease us. And this is the graph which represent the accuracy and loss of the training. And now I will show the output.
Please wear the mask. 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 Please wear the mask.
Hello, everyone. We are Group 7 from the AI/ML department. Ganesh, Hitanshi, and myself, Gautam, under the guidance of Shanti ma'am, have come up with the PBL project on urban growth prediction model. So over to Ganesh to explain the abstract.
Yeah, hello all. So in the abstract, the human population continues to aggregate in the urban centers. This inevitably increases the urban footprint with significant consequences for biodiversity, climate, and environmental resources. Due to the increasing trend of urbanization, along with potential environment consequences, urban growth modeling appears to have a protagonist role in urban planning to assist in decisions related to sustainable urban development. So our project tackles these issues caused by lack of city planning by predicting the future land use patterns using cellular automata and Markov model, thus providing the basic frameworks for effective city planning. Urban growth modeling will help guide administrative bodies for civic communities and infrastructure to plan cities ahead of time to tackle such issues. So over to Hitanshi.
Hello everyone, I'll be explaining the methodology we have used for our project. So we began with the satellite data acquisition, where we downloaded the data from Earth Explorer. The GeoTIFF images were extracted from Landsat 5 and Landsat satellites. The land use and land change images were obtained from Indian government platform of geographical information Bhuvan for analysis. Data pre-processing. So the first composite bands of the satellite images were combined to produce an image, which were then analyzed to find the trends and understand the data. And hence it was implemented in the CA Markov model on the platform TERSET, formerly known as IDRISI, which predicts the pixel intensities for land use and land change in the year 2021 and creates a raster image, which is then used to generate a map. So the Markov model is a convenient tool for simulating land use and land change. It studies the initial occupation and transition probabilities of different states. A Markov process is one in which the future state of the system can be simulated purely on the basis of the immediately preceding state. Markov model will describe land use from one period to another and use this as the basis to project future changes. This is achieved by developing a transition probability matrix of land use change from time 1 to time 2, which shows the nature of change while still serving as the basis for projecting to a later time. Yeah, so this is the Markov model transition probability matrix for our land use model. But the drawback of a traditional Markov model is that it is difficult to for spatial land use changes, and hence we use the CA Markov model.
So the data was collected for the year 2005 to 2018 from the website bhuvan.nrc.government.in. So here these images have around 7 classes, and the 7 subcategories can be grouped into 4 major categories, being built up vegetation, wastelands, and water bodies. So the data for prediction was collected from the Earth Explorer. So these are the first composite bands that you can see on top. And then after pre-processing, they form a color image. So next we move on to the code snippets for analysis. So for analysis, we used 3 main libraries, one being Matplotlib, NumPy, and Pillow. So the pixel intensity values are given below, and you can see for built up you have the urban, and then vegetation you have certain categories, and then wastelands and water bodies. So the first value that you see, 255, indicates the red. Then the second value you see indicates green, and the next one for blue, and the last one being the alpha value, that is nothing but the opacity or transparency of the pixel. So next, for 2006, we import the image, and then we extract the intensity values, put it in a dictionary, and we group all the pixels. So when we group all the pixels, the key of the dictionary happens to be the pixels, and then the values happen to be the number of counts that are there in the picture. So the total number of pixels is found, and then you find the percentage of urbanization, vegetation, wasteland, and water. So you can see for vegetation, we have taken a summation of all the types of crops and forest, and then the others have nothing much under them. And then similarly, that was done for till 2018, and then we plotted a graph. So we saw that urbanization has increased exponentially from 2006 to 2018. And then similarly for vegetation, there has been an erratic change. And then for wastelands, similarly has been an erratic change, and water bodies too. So the satellite images that we had pre-processed earlier are now again pre-processed to form land cover images using the maximum likelihood algorithm. So here we have for the left one for 2006 and then 2013 on the right. So this two images was then projected, used to project the cellular automata and Markov model in the IDRSI software. So we can see that there has been, a drastic change in the build-up. Similarly, vegetation, there has been a decrease, but significant decrease in water bodies, and wastelands, there has been an increase. So in Bangalore North, we found that areas likely to get urbanized were Doddapamasandra, MS Palya, Yalanka, Sahakar Nagar, in areas close to the Dodpalapur road. So you can see the regions here. You can see there are small red dots here, whereas here you can see them as clusters. So similarly here and here, if you can compare these images closely, you can find these were the zones that were, saw an increase in urbanization, more increase in urbanization. So Bangalore East, almost every zone had an increase in urbanization, except HSR layout. And then Bangalore South had an increase in urbanization in Electronic City, the Bommasandra, Begloor, and Kudlu. And then Bangalore East had an increase in urbanization in Peenya Industrial Area, Malatalahalli, and Sungadakkate. So next, coming to the conclusion, city planners and policy makers can then use this data for effective city planning and ensure there are sufficient public utilities that are created so that there's no overcrowding, and you can hence control the urban sprawl. So when this is done, you have a city with resources are divided equally among the people, and there's no overcrowding or a lot of demand for the resources. Thus, this is the conclusion, and thank you for listening to us.
Hi everyone, myself Akash from AIML department of BMS IT. My team, Arun Joseph, Abhishek and myself have designed a chatbot for our PBL. The reason why we have chosen a chatbot for a solution to COVID-19 is because we all know that the COVID-19 has started to spread globally and at a rapid pace. Until now, over 62 million have been infected, in which 1.46 million have died. In India alone, 9.43 million cases have been confirmed and 137,000 have died. Due to the lack of awareness and false information, many are in a state of fear about the ongoing pandemic. We hope we can resolve this issue by providing information related to the COVID-19 through a chatbot, through which even people from the remotest places could also get information about the current situation. And we have developed our chatbot using RESA framework, which is used in developing AI-powered chatbot. And we have deployed our chatbot through Slack, which is a social media platform through which people can access our chatbot.
Hi everyone, my name is Arun Joseph and I'm part of Group 1, which also includes Akash and Abhishek. For our PPL, we have decided to build a Corona chatbot. We chose a chatbot because during these trying times, it's difficult for professionals to answer all the questions one might have. With constantly changing stats, chatbots are the way to go. Our chatbots are built on top of a library called Rasa, and to be made publicly accessible by everyone, we have hosted it on a communication channel called Slack. Now, as you can see, all the chatbots are running locally in my system. So let's go ahead to the Slack channel and check out how our chatbots function. We can greet the chatbot by saying hi. The chatbot promptly replies. We can ask the chatbot questions about the coronavirus. The chatbot again scrapes the internet and gets us information about what the coronavirus is. Now, to ask the chatbot how to avoid corona, it gives us certain guidelines to stay more than 1 meter away from each other, etc. Now, as you can see, these chatbots are very useful in answering simple questions that one might have. And therefore, I urge every one of you to check out our Slack channel, covidchatbot-group.slack.com, and interact with our chatbots. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Shashikiran with my teammates Varshit and Aryan from AIML department. We are presenting about violence detection using computer vision under the guidance of Vishwakiran sir. In today's world, violence has been a major issue in many places. In public places, violent behaviors such as fighting, riots, armed individuals, etc., pose a serious threat to personal security and social stability. At present, millions of equipments are applied in public places, leading to a huge pressure on security attendance. In order to prevent or to decrease the violence, the culprits must be punished. In this, CCTV cameras with violence detection techniques can play a major role. Our main goal is to develop end-to-end trainable neural network models which classifies the video into violence and non-violence. Now I pass it on to Vashit.
Hi, my name is Varshit. Now I am telling about the proposed methodology. We proposed a DNN-based method to detect the violence, in which CNN is used to extract the spatial features from the video, and LSTM cells are used to make the predictions. A set of frames is extracted from the video and sent to a pre-trained VG16 network, and the output of the final layers of this network is sent to the LSTM model. Now I am passing to this Aryan.
Let's see the implementation of the project. We have made this project in Python and we have used Keras framework for making the models. First, the frames are extracted from the video and the data is labeled. This is a sample from the data. Then the VGG16 pre-trained model is loaded and the output of FC2 dense layer is used. After this, we extract features from all the videos and save it so that the training is faster and more efficient. The training and test set are split into 80% and 20% respectively, and then batches are created for training. This is the LSTM model that we are going to use. The model is trained for 200 epochs. This model gave an accuracy of 86%. Now let's test a video. This is the video that we are going to test. Here we have loaded the weights from the model which was trained in the previous notebook.
When we ran the program, the violence in the video was detected as 96%, and the model was trained for 200 epochs, and we got an accuracy of 86%. This type of violence detection cameras are very useful in the society, and it will be very helpful to many police officers to protect many areas. Thank you very much.
Towards compressed live image transfer, or DNN approach. Welcome to the sample of our PBL project. This project is brought to you by Ritvik, Sadanand, and Sai Darshan of the AI and ML department. We were given the theme of COVID-19 for this semester's PBL project in a meeting which had fairly blurred image. That's when we realized that online classes require a lot more bandwidth, and more than 60% of the student population might not have that in these circumstances. Hence, our problem question arose: how to use less bandwidth and deliver the same quality of image for online classes. The objective of our project is for it to be implemented to any machine to reduce internet consumption. When our code is implemented, areas with slow internet or even areas with bad network coverage will not only save data, but also save the hassle of spending more money for data that can barely be used. With the days of 5G internet approaching us soon, implementing this project will make online classes and meetings as if they were the real deal, at the comfort of one's home, of course. How we decided to implement our project was as follows. We had four main processes. One was reducing an image, that is, we needed a function which will return the reduced image by merging pixels into one. Next was the minor function, which was to use vector mathematics to make a new image that was at least 1/4 of the original size. Then we used a neural network to train we used data to train a neural network, which would help us in improving our algorithm. And finally, a decompressor, which would help us get the original image back, that is with reduced quality or with reduced size. Sai, it's your turn.
I'll be doing a system design. System design with this simple flowchart. We take the original image and we reduce the file size by merging the pixels in the image, and we get two images, the original image and the reduced image. We extract the data and segment the image to get two NumPy arrays, one of the original image and one of the reduced image. We pass that through the neural network training so that we get a compressed file which contains the reduced image and the weights of the reduced image. So we take this reduced image and the weights of the neural network and pass it through the neural network to get the decompressed segmented image, and we restructure the PNG file to get the original image. I will be showing you the working examples. This is an yin-yang image where the contrast between the white and the black part is seen. The original image is in the bottom right, and the original image, the size is 26,03,608. And the compressed size is actually very small, that is 3,16,152. On the top right, on the top left, you can see the compressed image which is passed through the neural network, and we get a decompressed image which is close to the original image itself. So this is one more example where the original size is 1,97,19,776 bytes, and the size when it is compressed is 20,67,680. See, in the compressed image is very blurred and not similar to the original image, but the decompressed image is very similar to the original image. And Ritvik will be continuing.
Thank you, Sai. So this is another image where we applied compression to. And so once compression was applied, we got an image size of 88,384 when compared to the original image size of 6,53,952 bytes. So when the compressed image, which can be seen here on the top left of the screen, was passed through the network, we got a reconfigured image which was almost identical to the original image, albeit for some minor errors. Now on to the function prototypes. So we have a series of functions which are used to segment out or divide up the code so it is legible and easy to use. First, we have a data extraction function which simply takes in an image and returns out the image and the shape of the image. We have a resize function which is used to cut down on the size of the image and compress it. Now we have a weights function, an encode image function, which basically takes in the name of the image and returns the weights. Then we have a decode image, which takes in the weights, the shape, and the input image, and it returned the actual image after it is reconfigured. After this, we have a class net, which is a PyTorch object which contains the forward function and the function used for the output of the thing. Then finally, we have a class image set object which is used for data segmentation and used in the data loader.
Good morning, everyone. We are Satyam, Shaurya, and Shravya doing a project on social distancing governance system enabling a post-pandemic smart society. We are under the guidance of Dr. Shanti Natarajan. Those are the contents over there. In case of COVID-19, it's an infectious disease, so social distancing is very important to curb the effects and not have many people get affected by it. So we are developing a device that can make that possible. The device we are making will be assisting us in maintaining that ideal distance between each person. So the objective of this whole project is to try and bring pandemic into control. We'll be taking all aspects into consideration like cost effectiveness and ethics, and we'll be bringing in knowledge from all different subjects and putting it into this. And the most important part are the stakeholders. We'll also be keeping that in our mind. Now, according to our survey, there are already many such similar devices in the market, but then most of them are not contact free, and it being contact free is probably the most important thing over here. We'll talk about how our device works in the next slide. So what we'll be doing is there'll be a device to scan people in a particular area, and between any two people, if there's a violation of minimum distance, then it will give out a signal. Coming to the technical part of it, there'll be a camera which is attached to a microprocessor which will be able to see an area of certain size. The image captured by the camera will be processed, and then a voice message will be generated to tell people to maintain social distancing. The response time of the voice message will be instance. The generated information will be true and will help reducing the spread. The system will also be very energy efficient. Let's go to the next slide and talk about system architecture and design. Over here, the input image or frame is taken, and the object will detect the input or image. Then we'll compute the pairwise distances using permutation and combination. If social distancing is not maintained, there'll be an alarm and there'll be a counter counting the number of violations. Thank you.
Welcome to the Automated and Sanitizer Dispenser project. Components required are turbo sheet, sanitizer dispenser, Arduino UNO board, ultrasonic sensor, servo motor, this is the servo motor, and male to female wires. These are used to connect the component. Let's get started. Now let's place all the required components on the turbo sheet and glue them so that they can't move anywhere. connecting ultrasonic sensor to the Arduino UNO board. Ultrasonic sensor can detect persons detection from less than 10 centimeter far. The pin diagrams are as shown in the figure. I have connected all the connections. I am connecting all the connections as shown in the figure to the circuit. Placing ultrasonic sensor to the top of the uh, pump, and servo motor I am placing so that it can, if the servo motor rotates, then the sanitizer can dispense. And I am connecting all the uh, wires as shown in the circuit to the Arduino UNO board. I have already loaded the Arduino UNO board so that it can work whenever and it detects and connecting the string from the same pump to the servo motor, and hence the it dot voted if we say it sends and. Thank you.
Good evening to you all. This is Group 19, and our team consists of myself, Suhas, and Sudhanva. Our project is traffic light detection using machine learning.
Yeah, this is the abstract part. Implementing the traffic light detection in motor vehicles is an idea that has been gaining popularity in automobile manufacturers as it has great potential in improving road safety and traffic control. And this traffic light detection uses neural networks and machine learning to detect light from the traffic signal. Such mechanism can prevent innumerable accidents that happens every day due to irresponsible driving. Leading automatical car manufacturers like Audi, Mercedes, and BMW have begun to implement traffic light detection in their cars. And the next is subject mapping. The first one is data structures are helpful in understanding the working of training and testing data sets. The images are to be used are tested and labeled. The outcome of classification model will be an array of possible values representing the model of images. And the next subject is the DMS. Since we are dealing with the images, it is directly connected to the basic concepts of DMS. The knowledge of graph theory is important to plot the variables and its outcomes. Next slide. In determining the system requirements for properly understanding the working of the functions being used, the program were achieved with the help of CO. Since we are developing a software, it is important to know the techniques and methodologies to be implemented while developing a software. And while allotting well-distinguished tasks to each member of the software developing team, the knowledge of software engineering is important. Next slide. Statistical mathematics is must for any machine learning model. Classification of elements in classification model is done with the help of statistical maths. Classification of datasets are done with the help of mathematical formulas. The output of classification model are probabilistic values. These values are processed using mathematical formulae. Now Sudhanva will continue with the code.
Yeah, so thank you, Suhas. So now me and Sudhanva will be explaining the implementation for our traffic light classifier. So first, what we did was we imported the necessary libraries, which are mostly TensorFlow and Keras. And so first, then later we had to do this data processing because when we build a CNN model, we need the data in a particular format. So we had to do certain adjustments, and then so our data set consists of 907 training images. So we'll have to train them in groups. So the parameter which this function requires is batch size. So what it does is it makes groups of 16 pictures each and then trains it group by group. And we'll be using the sparse class mode since we'll have to classify the image. Uh, we'll have to classify the image because there's more than one class, which is more than two classes, which is red, green, and yellow. And then we do the same thing for test set, but we don't actually change the features like how we did for the training set. And then we straight away go to building the CNN model. So first we perform augmentation. So what augmentation does is like it kind of duplicates the images by flipping it horizontally or adjusting the zoom and all that, so that we can increase our data set. And so after that we created three convolutional layers. So so these include creating a convolutional block and a pooling layer. So there are three sets of those, and then we kind of combine all these and flatten them, and then we build the neural network, which is the artificial neural network. So a CNN becomes so an ANN becomes a CNN when we have these three layers. So after that, we just connect it to the final output layer, which contains only three neurons because we have only three classes, three different classes, red, green, and yellow. Yeah, so now Sudhanva can continue.
Thank you, Tejasvi. So from this point onwards in the code, we finish with training the CNN and we derive the results from this trained model. So in this part of the code, we are actually fitting our model in onto the training data set and all the images that we have into it. This is where the model learns to recognize features in the image. We're running it for an epoch value of 10, which is it runs 10 times. And you can see the validation and test and training accuracies on the right hand side of this column. Yeah, and in part 4 of the code, we are actually deriving the results of this training, and we are putting it into this variable that is history. And this history contains lists of the training accuracy, training accuracy, training loss, validation accuracy, and validation loss. We take these lists of values and we put it into the PyPlot library. We use the PyPlot library that Python provides, and we plot the accuracies and losses. So as you can see from these plots, there is a large discrepancy between the training accuracy and validation accuracy, and also the training loss and validation loss. These graphs are telltale signs of this certain phenomenon called overfitting that happens when you have a relatively smaller number of images in your data set, and the model tends to learn to classify the images based on features that we did not mean for the model to learn. For example, if most of the green light images in the training data set were of a darker lighting, then it might be associating all images that have darker lighting in the test set as green, even though they might be red or yellow lights. And in the next part, In this part, we are actually conducting the prediction. The model predicts the class of any image that we feed to it. So this image is first extracted using the Pillow library and also the Keras library of Python, and then we feed it into the model where by using the predict function, and then the softmax layer converts the result matrix that we receive from the model, that is the predicted values, and it converts those values into probabilities, and then the highest probability out of those values, it stands for whether the image is classified as green, red, or yellow, and that is what is printed out in the end. So that was our project. Thank you all.
Greetings to everyone watching this video. Hope you're keeping good. Today, myself, Lahari Bale, Pranavi and Tejas, students of the Department AI and ML are here with a prototype of sensory alert mask. This is basically a mask which has a sensor attached to it, and this sensor will sense the humidity and the LED bulb will be glown if the person removes or slides down the mask away from his nose. Now, let me explain you the working of this sensory alert mask with the help of a flowchart. As you can see here, if the switch is turned on, then the sensor initializes, else the process is in its off state. Once the sensor is initialized and if the humidity changes, then the LED bulb glows, alerting the person to wear the mask in its right way. Else, if the humidity remains the same, then the LED doesn't glow. And this loop continues. For constructing this, we'll be needing a DHT11 sensor, Arduino Uno, LED, breadboard, switch, and male to female jumper wires. Now, we'll be showing you a live demo of how this works.
Alert mask. The sensor is placed inside the tube of the mask, which gets its power from the Arduino we connected. The output of the Arduino is connected to our sensor. Now, we connected our LED to the Arduino. The input of the LED is connected to the Arduino. The LED gets its instructions based on the humidity sensor we connected. Now, when I take my mask down or when I slide it down, the humidity around the sensor changes. So, the LED here gets the instructions and glows.
As you just saw that the LED glows as soon as she removed her mask away from her nose, and hence reminding the person wearing the mask to put it back. This mask can play a major role in such COVID pandemic situations. Hope you liked our project. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm going to start off by presenting our presentation. So good morning, everybody. So our presentation is called as our system is called as the predictory model for COVID-19, and my teammates are Rishik and Jonathan. And we have done this project under the guidance of Dr. Vishwakiran. He is an assistant professor in our department, AI and ML. So the contents of our presentation are going to be the abstract, introduction, literature survey, motivation, system requirement, proposed methodology, implementation, conclusion, results of a system, and the references that we have used in our presentation. So, as we know, the present situation with COVID-19 is alarming. So, to take a better stand against COVID-19, what we need is a way to predict the trends of the number of cases and the areas which will be most affected. By being able to predict this, we will be able to take a better measure against it. Stance. However, doing this in a single time will not be effective because the situations change every time. We interfere with the situation, so we propose to instill a better solution. The predictory model for COVID-19 uses the data available, example, the number of symptomatic or asymptomatic cases or the area of the cases, people who have been in contact with the cases, and etc. And by using this data, we will predict the rise and fall of the cases in the particular area so we can take the required measure to decrease the spread of the virus. So, as you know, the coronavirus or the SARS-CoV-2 has an incubation period of 2 to 14 days. The person is most infectious on day 1 of the symptoms, but by the time they get affected 2 days prior. But they get affected 2 days prior to the symptoms, so they are most infectious 2 days prior. Hence, we know that it's really important to be aware of the situation in our surroundings. And if anyone's infected in the neighborhood, it is a mandatory measure to quarantine ourselves and prevent the spread of this virus. The current situation we face is a situation where the measures we take today might not be effective tomorrow. So we propose to create a system which takes varying variables into consideration and suggests the best action. So our literature survey, the materials we have used to get our project done is hands-on machine learning with the Skit-learn and TensorFlow, introduction to machine learning and machine learning with Python, and a guide for data scientists, sequences, time series prediction, that is deeplearning.ai and Coursera. So, what is our motivation? We are trying to flatten the curve, which means reduce the number of sick people and therefore slows the rate at which new people get sick. Our project helps to predict the number of cases in a given area and hence makes us aware of the situation that we are in so that we could take the appropriate measures to safeguard ourselves. Also, the inefficiency of the way the situation is being handled and the time it's taking to find an end to this pandemic has motivated us to do this project. So, the system requirements are a TensorFlow framework, a server to run it 24/7, and a GPU to train the model. So, the proposed methodology is to take in the data every day use in every data everyday use that as the base for the model to continue growing, and to train the model first use the publicly available data on Kaggle's or government websites. So the implementation, what we're going to do is to get the data from the government websites, build a time series model using the TensorFlow, run the model locally, build a prediction system, and analyze the possible solutions. So these are the results of our system. As you can see, the first graph is of the graph that we got for our predictory system, and the second graph is what we got for our forecasting system. So not exactly concluding, but we're using a more complex system with more variables which will allow us not only to forecast the number of cases of COVID-19, but also allows us to determine the deciding factor of the spread of COVID-19. We have our link of our project at the bottom of the slide, and if you want it, we will we will send it to you. So the references that we've used is, I think I've repeated the slide. Thank you. That's it. I hope you liked our presentation. Thank you. I hope you liked it.
Hello everyone, ourselves from AML department. Our this group 10, we consist of 3 members, myself Manojin, Madhumita and Mizafuddin. Our PBL topic is safe elevator with contactless panel board and social distancing alert under the guidance of our government. So as we know that after the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, there emerged the need of new technologies that would enable the safe continuity of lifestyle and work. So one such area that requires immediate attention is elevators. Elevators could be a risky transmission hotspot if safety measures is not taken place. So the main objectives of our people topic is to provide safe travel in the elevators, to help the able, disabled and elderly people to maintain social distancing and use of panel board without fear.
Hello everyone, I'm Madhumita. I'll be explaining the working prototype of the contactless panel board. So the components that the user interacts with are the IR sensor module. So that can be seen as the white and black bulbs. So one would be a transmitter and the other is a receiver. Then the red LED bulbs to indicate the option selected and the 7-segment display. Since I've already uploaded the code inside the Arduino Nano board, I just need to give power supply to it. So I give 5-volt power supply. Now, to activate option of floor, I just need to place my finger in front of it, and the respective LED is turned on, and it's displayed on the display. Since we have also considered the lift system flow, so when I reach the particular floor, the respective LED is turned off, so the option is deselected. To explain this, we'll be trying to show by selecting all the options together. Now on the third floor, and I choose all the options together, and then it goes off, the LED goes off like 3, 2, 1, 0. Now I'm at the ground floor, and again I choose all the options together, and the LED goes off as 0, 1, 2, 3. So this prototype simulates the lift system by focusing mainly on the contactless panel board to avoid direct contact of the panel surface. Thank you.
Hello everyone, Muzaffardin Beg here. So I will be handling the social distancing protocol alert system for this PBL project so as to ensure that the social distancing rules are being followed inside the lift. What we have done is we have created an AI-based social distancing detection tool that can detect if the people are following all the rules of social distancing inside the lift and maintaining a safe distance between each other. The approach we have taken mainly consists of 3 steps. The first one is that all the humans are detected in the frames through YOLO V3 convolutional neural network, and in the second step the distances are calculated between all the human beings intercepted in the frames, and the third one is classifying the detected human frames in the categories of alert or OK. Alert indicating that social distancing rules aren't being followed, and OK indicating that people are maintaining safe distance between each other inside the lift. So the approach we have taken consists of mainly 3 libraries: OpenCV for computer vision, Math for mathematical problems in determining the distances and calculating social distancing rules part, and NumPy. And for the classification part, what we have done is, so as to improve the accuracy of this system, we are gonna alert the people inside the lift based on the number of people not following the rules. So as to prevent the false alarms being triggered, the more number of frames being detected as an alert one, which means that the more number of people not following the social distancing rule, higher will be the accuracy of the alert.